Hey everybody, what is going on? We are live. We are live tonight, and we are going to talk about buying a home sold as is. So, like I always like to do before I start any of the lives, is to make sure we are live. So that is what I'm going to do before I start this live. And while I'm looking to make sure we're live, please come inside, jump in the chat. Let me know where you guys are watching from. If you're jumping on tonight live, if you are not on tonight live and you're watching the replay, put it down inside the comments as well as far as where you are tuning in from. How is your housing market going? If you are either a realtor, someone in the real estate field, please chime in below as well and let me know where you're at as far as real estate. If you are a home buyer or someone looking to buy a home, please put in the comments as well. Hey, what's going on from New Jersey? What's going on? What's going on? So we're going to jump into it. And so I know I'm live because I got a comment, so that's always great. So let's just jump right into it. And if people come on, they'll join us in this discussion. If not, then hopefully they'll see the replay of the video. If you guys don't know, my name is Devon. I am a local realtor in the Metro Atlanta area of Georgia. And so if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. So again, this topic is about buying a home sold as is. If you guys don't know, you might see a couple of listings that you might come across on Zillow, Realtor.com, Trulia, those different websites that you might search in regards to possibly looking to purchase a home. And you might come across some things that might say in the section buying the seller is selling it basically as is. And so what exactly does something being sold as is mean? So just because sometimes it might be sold as is, it might just be that the seller does not want to, well, 9 times out of 10 is being sold as is because the seller does not want to repair anything in the house. However, sometimes it could be sold as is in regards to maybe the seller doesn't have the money or the funds to repair said items, so they have to sell it as is, reducing the price or maybe giving some type of concessions towards the price. Sometimes you get some sellers that'll sell stuff as is, where they won't reduce, they won't give you any closing costs and things like that. What's going on? What's going on, Monique? What's going on? Thank you guys for tuning in. If you have any questions, anything you want to say in the comments, just put it below and we're going to start the discussion again, being sold as is. So I'm going to give you guys a little video first to kind of give you some insight as far as, again, something being sold as is, and then we'll jump into the discussion around things being sold as is. So let me know if you guys can see this when you're in, and we're going to go to the video first. And so this is a realtor as well. He's out of Arizona, I believe, and he's going to talk to us about what sold as is can sometimes basically mean.
Are you considering buying a house as is? Well, that could mean a few things. And the first thing you want to do is just ask the seller why. Are there major problems, or is the house just outdated? If there are major problems, you might want to talk to your lender, because banks won't typically finance a loan that has certain things wrong with the home. But this could also be an opportunity for you to save some money. Here are 7 red flags to watch for if you're thinking about buying as is. The first red flag is the foundation. It's not a common issue, but a home inspector will look for cracks, and you may want to get a specialized inspection and hire a structural engineer. Second, are there any additions? First off,
so like you said, the first thing might be, if you're trying to buy a house sold as is, you might want to, excuse me if the signal kind of goes blurry. This daggone StreamYard thing always does this. I might have to get a new streaming platform. But the first thing you might want to look for if you're buying a property sold as is, like you said, you want to kind of look at the foundation. You want to make sure the foundation is not cracking. The foundation is not per se anything in the kitchen. I've gone into a couple homes, even where investors have flipped it, they're not even listed as sold as is. But when you go into the kitchen or you go into the space, you can tell that the flooring is sloping down. So to me, that shows that they didn't raise the foundation correctly, and they didn't kind of grade everything correctly on that particular end, in my opinion. Again, I'm not a construction worker, but on my opinion, from looking at houses, this is what I'll see sometimes, where I'll see these new flip houses where I'll go in and you can literally take a marble, roll the marble down the floor, and it'll literally roll down the floor to the whole other end. So you want to kind of look at that foundation. So that's one of the things he is saying that you should look at when you're buying a house sold as is.
You want to make sure they're built well, but also you want to make sure there are no issues with government or HOA regulations. The third red flag.
So again, these are red flags that he's pointing out. So like he said, the second thing is that you want to make sure that if an addition is added on to the home, that the addition is permitted correctly. So if a house is being sold as is, you want to make sure that addition is permitted correctly. I've gone through many of situations where me on the buyer side with a buying client, and I see a lot of these new homes that are being flipped. Again, you might not have sold as is as far as the flipped homes, but I'll see a lot of flip homes nowadays from investors that bought, and I'll see that they converted the garage into another living space. So it might be an additional bedroom. They might have added a bathroom, maybe a family space. And then you'll have to check on the back, and you want to make sure if you see anything like that that might be out the odd, that doesn't look like it actually goes in line with the home, or if something was converted, you want to ask your realtor to check to make sure that this home has been permitted correctly, because you don't want to buy a home as a new homeowner and get into the home and realize that this home is not permitted correctly. And so when you go to sell it in the future, or if anyone comes out, let's say you go and try to get an addition on top of the addition that was in your home, the contractor comes out, an appraiser comes, the tax assessor comes out, all these people come out to check for stuff. Maybe your next door neighbor is getting an addition done to their house, and the contractor sees that it's something. He's like, oh, okay, because a lot of contractors do this. They'll come and they'll do somebody else's house across the street, and then they'll look at yours and they're like, well, is that supposed to be there? And then they'll actually go down to the city, start checking in the stuff and permitting. Then it might not be permitted correctly, or the city might not have gave a permit for said addition. And then next thing you know, you'll get a document on your door telling you that you have to literally turn that garage back into a garage. So all that money you put out to get it done, if it's not permitted correctly, you have to turn that back into what it was and go through the process all over again, paying more money out of your pocket. What Monique said. How can you tell if there's an addition if they don't tell you? So you have to ask. So you can ask, tell your buyer's agent to ask. Like I say, typically how I notice it is by the way in which the floor plan flows in the house. If it looks like it's an extra bedroom somewhere, if your agent can do this as well, they can look in the tax records. So say if the house is originally a 3-bedroom house, and then you go and you look at the house and there's 4 bedrooms, typically that means that an add-on has occurred. Sometimes, every time, not all the time, but sometimes when things are being filed at the county, they don't always they don't always, I guess you could say a take. I don't know if that makes sense. They don't always account for, they don't always account for an additional room. Like I have a seller about to put his house currently on the market right now within the next month. And his house actually was built with 4 bedrooms, but at the county, they only said that it was 3 bedrooms. Of course, it works on your benefit as the home buyer, because you're only getting taxed per se for 3 bedrooms. But you want to just kind of look into that further. Again, it could be, you can look into the accounting records as far as how many bedrooms are supposed to be there. You can typically tell that a house has been converted as an addition when you see the garage converted into another living space, another dwelling, because those things have to be insulated correctly. They have to be heated correctly, and different things like heating and cooling. All those things have to be done correctly, so they have to be permitted correctly. So let's go into another possible red flag if you're buying a home sold as is
roof damage. That can be a very expensive problem. Fortunately, some roofing companies do free inspections, hoping you'll hire them later for the repairs.
So again,
the fourth thing to look for is the flood zone.
Okay. Sorry, y'all. I'm probably gonna have to go without him talking because it's messing up my computer. I'll just go into talking because we also have it right here laid out. I was just having him talk, but we'll just go laid out per se. So the next thing you can talk about is the roof damage, as he was stating. It's all here, but I wanted to do the video. I was trying to be a little fancy, but my computer and this StreamYard platform is not the best, y'all. I got to get better at the streaming. Anyway, roof damage, it says the cost of a roof replacement is estimated to be $8,000 plus, which is a high added cost on top of the home value, not to mention a major overhaul to the property. So you want to kind of check as far as when a house is being sold as is. Like currently, the reason why I'm doing this topic tonight is because I currently have a buyer in the market wanting to purchase a house as is. So when I come over here and I do these lives, you guys, it's based off of my experiences or experience of other people that are close to me, whether family members, relatives per se. Well, that's the same thing as family members. family members, friends, or maybe some of my colleagues. But right now, this is an experience I'm currently going through as well, and I went through before. So when something is being sold as is, typically, again, it doesn't always mean that the person is telling you a house that's about to collapse or about to fall over. It might just mean that either one, they don't have the means to repair anything. Two, the house could be outdated. So maybe everything is going for a modern type of style of house nowadays, open floor plans, all these concepts, updated counterware as far as they might have went from Formica to granite to quartz. Maybe put a different backsplash into the in the kitchen, in the bathroom, upgraded bathrooms, things like that. So you have a lot of different categories in which sold as means. But sometimes you'll get a lot of sold as that. Typically, nowadays you'll get it where the house is just tore the hell up. I'm just gonna be blunt. It's tore up, and one of the issues could be a roof situation. So all this, and I'll get into it with the other article. When you have different financing that you're utilizing to purchase houses, you might not be able to get the house because of said roof damage. And also, if you guys watched one of my videos before, we talked about after your roof goes past a certain amount of years, some home insurance companies will not insure your home insurance with the roof. And they'll also, so you'll have to go find a local insurance carrier, or you'll have to ask your lender, because most times if you have a loan that's backed by the government, they have to insure, or any loan, they have to insure it as far as, because again, the insurance is put in place for the lender. Really, ultimately, I don't care what nobody says. They'll probably fight me with this one. The insurance is put in place for the lender because the lender is financing you, loaning you money for say property of the house in order to make sure the house is in suitable condition. So if it goes forward, anything should happen, those things can be repaired, and they can then offsell the house to make sure they make their money back, right? Hopefully that makes sense. I hope I'm not, not all over the place with you guys. But yeah, so with this situation, you have roofs, and nowadays you can call your home insurance, and you can say, hey, what is the maximum life of the roof as far as what you'll insure at? What I'm hearing from home insurances myself, they're saying no more than 10 to 15 years at the most. Once it gets to that 10-year mark, they're not insuring. It's almost like a riskier plan. They don't want to insure said roof. So once you get to roofs that are 20 years old with a lot of damage to them, those are roofs that are going to need to be replaced. So if you're going into a house that has a roof situation where it's being sold as is, you want to try to see if that seller can say, okay, I know you're not willing to replace said roof, but are you willing to give any seller's credit, closing costs, any type of concessions to the roof so I can make replacements? And like I did currently with my buyer, I went out because one of the concerns is the roof. The seller disclosed in the property disclosure that the seller's property disclosure that the roof was 20 years old. I already knew as a red flag, and I told my buyer, I said, hey, it's going to be a problem, especially with your loan being FHA, and then also with home insurance, because as you have an FH insured loan, you need home insurance too to make sure you can actually close on the deal. And I know from having conversations with the recent insurance carriers that they are not really insuring 20-year-old roofs. So what you're going to end up doing is have to find a local home insurance carrier that will insure said roof. It'll probably cost you more money, or like I said, the lender might have some type of insurance in place that they can tack on to help you in the process. But again, it's going to cost more money. So you want to kind of look at the roof, make sure it's not too old, and then you can always, like I said, again, call the insurance company to let them know, right? All right, next is the flood zone property. So you want to make sure it says if a home is in a flood zone, that's a red flag, as it could mean major damage to the property. So basically they're saying, again, if the home is in a flood zone, that means that there could possibly be a lot of water damage to the property. That's a structural issue, right? So if you guys want to kind of see how to see if your home is in a flood zone, FEMA, they actually have a website in which you can go to, and I'm already at the website. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys the website. I already put an address in, but what I did is I took the address out, because if I show you this, if I put the address in online, they're going to flag my video, and then this whole video will be purposeless. So what I did is I just put it in, and I took it out, but I have the area in which I put it. So this is Coatesville, Pennsylvania. This is an area in which I lived in for several years with my grandma, my cousins, my dad, in Pennsylvania. So this is Coatesville, Pennsylvania, and this is on FEMA. So you can go to FEMA. You can go, and they have a thing where you can actually put the address into a property around, and they'll show you where the flood zones could possibly be when it comes to Thanks, Lang. I'm like, I got to get you to be able to comment on here. Lang just text me, say great information. Thanks, Lang, Monique, and then my dad is James Clark. If you guys haven't know him by now, but for joining me live tonight. But yes, so this is Coatesville, Pennsylvania. This location right here is where our house is at in Coatesville, Pennsylvania, where my grandma's house is at. And as we move along here, you'll see. I might have to go a little in. Hold on. Okay, so right here in this area right here, this are considered flood zones. So hold on, let me go. And so you want to go on FEMA's website, put the address in of a home that you're looking at, and then you can go down here. It might be, let me make it a little bigger so y'all can see what this stuff says. You can go down here. Sorry, y'all. I'm trying. Oh, shoot. This is what happens when you mess with computers. Trying to make sure y'all can go in so y'all can see this stuff. Okay, so this is Coatesville. And you see Zone AE, Zone AE. And then you see how they kind of stripe, different stripes, different colors. And this might be too big for y'all, so y'all might be like, this is blurry on screen. So I don't know how this looks like on screen. But okay, so we're looking at flood zones, right? So it says right here, this blue stuff, it says without base flood elevation. Again, you want to talk to more of the insurance carrier, people around the flood, FEMA, different people, because I'm just a realtor, but I'm showing you where you can go to get this information. So it says special flood hazard areas. So it's saying that these areas that are this color and this stripe color, these are flood areas. So you want to be careful. So anything up here in that area, when you're trying to buy a home, if they're in these areas, that means that it's known to flood in that area and your house could get some water damage. And again, you guys have to understand home insurance and also understand that flood insurance, right? And you have FEMA insurance, all that stuff. He said, when buying a house as is, does negotiating the price favor the buyer? So yeah, we're going to get into that as well. So you can definitely negotiate the price. Typically what happens is most people that know they're selling their house as is, sellers will adjust the price accordingly to what they think it should be worth being sold as is. So if they know that a house is being sold, all the houses in a subdivision are being sold at $250, they might adjust the price to $230 because they know that this house might need about $20,000 worth of work. You can go in as a buyer and say, hey, I'll give you $225 if you can give me additional blah, 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 as far as credits, concessions towards closing costs, and they might be willing to adjust said that way. But I'm going to get into an article where a realtor was talking about that, who helped somebody. They talked to her on realtor.com. She laid everything out, how she went about helping a seller sell their home as is. But yes, you definitely can negotiate the price if they haven't already offset said price to an amount that they feel is feasible for the house to be sold as is. All right, so this is FEMA. Like again, you guys can go in here yourself. You can check this out if you have any questions, and you just read through it. It says other areas of flood zones, so you see all these lines, and so you want to kind of look around those areas, right? So we're going to jump off of there. So that is FEMA. So hopefully that helps you guys when it comes to if your house is in a flood zone. That's what you want to do. I always do that with all my buyers that are buying homes. I get on FEMA just to make sure it's not in the flood zone, because we don't want your house to be in a flood zone. The next thing is mold infestation. Okay, so it says another challenging issue with as is sales is the presence of mold problems. Mold is not only costly to remove, but it's also it can also be a health hazard. As a result, most lenders will also want to steer clear of lending on a home that has severe mold infestation. So that's another issue, having mold damage in the home. And typically, we all know that most mold comes from water damage, right? Are we going to have mold spores in our home, some type of mold in our home? Yes, most people, there will be mold. There's mold all over us, all out throughout the world, right? But we don't want to have a condensed, like this big damage of mold and black mold and all these pores trying to inside the home. So if you know the home has extensive water damage to it, I suggest you as a buyer say, hey, I want to get a mold. You can get a mold, what is it called? A mold inspection done. I've done that with buyers where I had them get mold inspection done, radon test done. I know one buyer that I just recently helped. They had bought a home, and in front of the home had a lot of tree roots in them around the house. So I said, hey, we might want to get a plumbing scan type of done to the house, because sometimes the tree roots get down into the soil, they crack through the piping, and if Is there any cracks in the piping or cloggage going on? Let's get the seller to handle these repairs prior to you guys buy the house, or let's ask the seller for some money towards that type of repair, right? Even though, it might say sold as is, it might not say sold as is. But these are things you want to kind of look for when you're buying a house as a buyer, because houses are very expensive, you guys. They are very expensive today. So if you see a bunch of trees around and all you see is a bunch of roots coming up from the grass, you see the trees like elongating outward, they might some way somehow get into the pipes of your house, all right? So another thing is that mold infestation, it costs money to remediate that mold. So if you have that, you want to get a mold inspection done and you want to remediate that mold. Monique said, can you get multiple tests done for one price, or is it per test? So it's per, down here in Georgia, it's per test. Every state is different. Every inspection company is different. So you should ask them, how do they go about it? I know down here you get your typical home inspection done. And with your home inspection, they'll have add-ons. What I did learn, because this is what I did and it kind of was pointless, and so I had to work with the buyer to kind of get this done, is that when we did that plumbing scan with the plumbing line to make sure none of the roots kind of hit that plumbing, and then we got the plumbing company people to come out, because the inspector did that in turn. They did their own store line scan. When we got the plumbing people to come out, they were like, oh, well, we're going to charge you to do our own store line scan. Even though we had the information, we had a video, the layout, the information all back to us on paper. We had a video of the scanning and everything. The plumbing company, of course, they want to make their own money, so they wanted to do the scan all over. So maybe you might want to directly call these companies that do the mold testing, that do the radon testing. Again, your home inspection company can do it, but if it leads to something like they want to charge you to do it again, even though you have actual documentation stating that it was done, this is just stuff that you should kind of just reach out to. Maybe call the people that do mold infestation stuff, remediation. Say, hey, I have a home inspection that I'm doing to my house. I'm going to do a mold test. I was going to just pay for it through my inspection, but if I pay for it through my inspection, will you guys recharge me, even though I have a report done from the inspector? Will you recharge me to come out to take the test again and do the remediation? Again, every state is different. Everybody works differently. We're in a new era where everybody wants to pay. Everybody wants their money. Before this whole thing, like I said, with the sword thing, that would have been a problem. But now it's this new thing where everybody wants to charge for everything. And most times people don't want to come out and give you free estimates no more. This is stuff that I've been encountering lately, because like I said, the sellers that I'm working with, the buyers that I'm working with, I keep having to, after we do our inspection, I keep having to actually go and get estimates done by licensed contractors. Some agents will not do this. I kind of go above and beyond. So I kind of work more, because I'm like, at this end of the day, if I'm working for you and you're my client, I'm trying to service you correctly. So I want to make sure we have everything on paper, everything documented, and we're going to get estimates. So, and this only helps you in the long run. Next, we'll go to septic system failure. So it says, in case of a failed septic system, most lenders will not grant a mortgage without proper replacement. It says adding a new septic system can carry high costs and extreme pricing variability level. For example, you might spend $10,000 on replacement or upwards of $50,000. So this is if you guys know that the house is on a septic. Most houses nowadays, you don't get that many that are on septics unless you go far out in the country somewhere, someplace that's not connected to like a city line, to like a public source system. But if you do know that the house has a septic, you want to make sure you get that inspected, or you want to ask the seller about the septic system. Again, some sellers might not be able to tell you what the septic system looking like if they haven't actually went and did anything to throughout the years to actually make sure the septic is clean, working well, whatever. Then I would say y'all might want to check the septic. And then it says not allowing for inspection. So that's a big red flag. It says, as it simply means no renegotiating in the sales price, that's fine in a competitive market. But I advise my clients against moving forward with any home if the owners will not allow an inspection. Buyers have a right to know the condition of the home they're buying, and if sellers disagree, it tends to mean they're hiding something. So again, as you guys saw him state, he said, as far as the renegotiate, not having the means to renegotiate, you can always renegotiate on as is. So it's the way in which the seller tells you as is. Up front, you can ask the agent when they say as is, like I did with my recent buyer. I said, hey, before we put an offer in, I said, I saw in the listing you guys are having it sold as is. So are you guys open to giving closing costs for my buyer if she finds anything through inspection purposes? And they said they were open to it. So again, have that upfront conversation. We had an inspection. So if they say you can't have an inspection, that is a red flag. You want to be able to have an inspection for an as is. If you're buying something as is. Sorry, you guys, if my thing is buffering again, it is what it is. It is what it is. This computer is not the best, y'all. I'm trying to do my best here to give y'all this information, but my computer always act like this. So let's go on to the next thing. If you have any questions, continue to put them in the comments. If you're watching this video on the replay, put any comments inside the comment boxes below. A lot of things are being done. You'll see some homes that, like I said, nowadays from some sellers, they'll say being sold as is. And again, those are the people that typically don't want to repair anything, or they can't afford to repair anything. So they're just selling it as is. So let's go into the story real quick of this agent. So this is a story that I saw too that I thought was interesting. So let's make it bigger. It was an agent that was working with a client to sell their house. And they listed it as is. So it says, buying a home as is. Experts cautionary tale reveals why you should always come armed with a contractor and cash. So similar to my buyer that we just recently put an offer in for this as is house, she brought a contractor with her. We did bring a contractor with us because I always advise people, if you're buying a house that's in older condition, if you're buying even a house that has been flipped, if you're buying a sold as is house, any type of house that looks run down, you should always try to bring a contractor with you. Typically, if they're your friends, it's better because you might not have to pay them anything, but some contractors might want you to pay them maybe $100 or whatever. Depends on if they want you to pay them some type of money to kind of go out there and kind of walk around the house with you, inspect it as you go, per se, even though you'll still get a home inspector. You'll have your contractor come with you, but then once you go under contract, you'll have your home inspector come. So if you're going to buy a house sold as is, this is what I advise. But again, it's up to you guys, and it's up to how you want to work with your agent through this process. But nonetheless, let's kind of get to it. It says a real estate expert has a cautionary tale for those considering buying a home as is. It involves making sure you bring your contractor and your cash. So she's basically talking about in 2022, two brothers inherited a home belonging to their third brother after he died. This was a 2-story split-level house in South Carolina. It says it was not only run down, lacking curb appeal with an unkept front yard, it also came with the brother's roommate who refused to move or pay rent. This is another situation I'm going through with a current seller that I'm trying to get the house on. Luckily, their relative decided to move out without any type of situation. But again, this is another thing I tell people. So what people don't know, when anybody comes to your house, say if even like a relative, like typically we don't do this, right? But if a relative calls you and say, hey, I'm just going to use my cousin Monique, for example. Hey, Monique, I'm coming to your house this weekend. Can I stay a week with you? And she says, sure. And then I come to her house. I'm there for more than a week. I go into a month per se. And then she's like, okay, Devon, are you going to leave? And I say, oh, I don't feel like leaving right now. I'm going to stay another week. And after a certain amount of time, depending on the state you live in and the city you live in, and like those ordinances, I will become a tenant to your property and you will have to formally evict me out of your property. So what they tell most people to do is that if anybody is calling you just to come and stay a day or two or whatever, you should put an agreement in place stating that, hey, you're coming to visit me for the week. You're only going to be here from this date to this date. After this date, you're supposed to leave. So that's what you're typically supposed to do as far as when it comes to anybody coming to visit you. Anybody staying with you should always be a lease in place. Any roommates should always be a lease in place. But most people, we don't operate like that because we're people based off of emotion and not operating in a business sense of mindset. So we'll just say, oh, hey, you can come stay with me for a couple of days. And, that's how it typically goes. But you're supposed to actually put, say, agreements in place when people come to stay with you anytime. And like, again, most people don't do that. But anyway, back to the story. I just thought I'd bring that up. It says the surviving brother who hadn't been identified both lived out of state and enlisted the help of a local agent, Swan. They enlisted the help of her. It says on the bright side, that's about the home, was in a great location downtown with award-winning school, shopping and restaurant. It says Swan knew the location would attract buyers. The sellers were very open with her from the beginning, circumstances surrounding the house, the sale, and the challenges they were facing in regards to the house. Monique said, wow, does it have to be notarized? I will always tell people to notarize it as well, just to be safe in the court's eye. So I would definitely say notarize it. But yes, but that's typically how it goes. People, like I said, we as human beings, we work off of emotion because we love people, right? We love our family members. Like if your mom or your sister and your brother come, you don't want to be like, oh, sign this agreement. But typically that's what we should be doing. But we don't do that because we love our family, right? It says the deceased owner's roommate was still living in the home. So after the brother died, the roommate, like again, was still living in the home. Brothers were having a hard time getting him out. He wasn't paying rent, but refused to leave. So the owner's family had to get attorneys involved. Again, attorneys got involved because you are now in this situation. He is a tenant, and I don't know how deep the story goes. I don't know if he was paying rent or whatever. Did they say he was paying rent? Oh, he wasn't. Sorry, he wasn't. I just read it. He wasn't paying rent. So we know he wasn't paying rent. It says 5 months later, Swan finally crossed the threshold of the home for the first time. So they finally got him out. She said it was dead plants, ivy climbing the house, piles of leaves, snapped curb appeal. She's hired a landscaper to clean up the yard, removing leaves, debris, vines off the house. The yard managed to tidy up things, make the exterior presentable. So she made the exterior more presentable. So this is the house, if you guys can see it. It was a split level 2-story house. And then it says, what's on the inside matters even more. She said, Swan entered the home for the first time. Her first thought was, wow, where do I even start? She said it was a mess. There were rooms you literally couldn't walk into, that they were all full. She said step one was bringing in a company to haul out the trash to declutter the house. It had a smell of ashtray and just was dirty, she said. But even after the home was cleared out and clean, Swan realized it showed clear signs that it had not been properly maintained. She said there was evidence of roof leaks, bathrooms with no running water, a door that had obviously been kicked in. So you'll see this is the inside of the room, some pictures of the inside of the rooms, the different rooms right here. I see like some carpet damage, look like carpet stains right here. Look like something kind of going through the wall here. I don't know if that's something that I'm seeing with that. That might just be the oh, that's just the blinds, the stuff to pull the blinds. I'm like, see like something right there. And then as right here, you guys can see that something was the matter with the door. You see the door, you see the worn hardwood floors right here. Looks like maybe up here might be some water damage in the ceiling right here. It looked like they had like a picture or something. So like some trimming situations here, some damage and trimming. So anyway, she said the property was in such a mess. The one thing Swan didn't expect was the sale would become a neighborhood affair. So basically the neighbors, they had recently did some renovations on the house. That's what it's kind of saying here. And so they came over. They had said in a particular neighborhood, so many people have done great renovations and take pride in their home. So this home was an eyesore. She said, I had a lot of neighbors coming to ask what was going on and if the house was being sold, including several neighbors interested in flipping the house themselves. Swan opened the home for neighbors and formed a relationship. And so blah, blah, blah. Let's get down to this. She hired a good photographer. This was also, you see downstairs, you have this worn floor. You have the chimneys, like burn spot in the chimney. So this is all the inside of the house, pictures of the house. This is the kitchen. Looks like something is holding it, latching is on. Must be one of those. It's like a closing gate they latched on. So they might have a dog. I had a dog in the house too. Again, if you have any questions, put them down in the comments. This is the point of doing these live, to converse with you guys, have conversations. Again, this live is about selling the house. If you're buying a house sold as is. And again, we're not just going to key on sold as is houses. We're going to key on any type of houses. Like I said, investors flip houses too. They don't put sold as is on the in the remarks, but they can also be typically houses that need some type of repair and also new construction. So we're going to dive into some new construction too at the latter end of that you guys think just because I'm getting a new construction house, I don't have to do any inspections. I don't have to worry about this whole thing of a house being sold as is. Because again, the house is still being sold as is, even though they might not say it, it's still being sold as is, right? You're buying a house as you see it. And then in the state of Georgia, we have a thing called what is it? Caveat emptor, whatever. But it basically means beware, buyer beware. It's saying that in this state, in Georgia, you have to do your own due diligence when buying a property. So you as a buyer need to be aware and do your own due diligence. Let's get back into the article. All right. So this is that. And so she's talking about bringing in a contractor. She said, bring your contractor and your cash if it's being sold as is. She said Swan kept improvements to the property to a minimum since the brothers didn't want to invest any money into the property. Again, they decided to sell it as is because they didn't want to invest any money into the property. I provided quotes and let them make decisions as needed, but overall, they were wonderful clients, she said. We priced the house to reflect its condition and as is nature of estate sale. So this wasn't a estate sale. It was being sold as is. It's very important to the sellers and to me to make sure there was a note in the MLS listing to say that the sellers had never lived in the home and had no firsthand knowledge of the property. So again, if you're selling a house as is, in this situation, these were two brothers and their one brother passed away. They never lived in the property. And since they never lived in the property, they don't know really what condition the property went through, what type of things happened in the property. So they wanted to make sure that note was clear because in certain states, disclosures are needed, especially when you're buying a house. Like in Georgia, even though they say that this state, you don't really need to have a seller's property disclosure, but we always want to make sure we have it when we do business. But if you're living in a house, you want to get a seller's property disclosure from the seller, and the lender typically, might ask for that per se sometimes. And then also in this state, what we do as an investor, we ask for a latent defect disclosure. So every state is different as far as their disclosures. You have some states that might ask for a mold disclosure. You have some states that might ask for a survey too. Georgia is not a survey state, so there's no survey that needs to be disclosed when buying a house. And even when you get to the closing table in Georgia with the attorneys, they'll literally read off to you. They'll say, because you didn't decide to do a survey, it's no fault to us if X, Y, and Z happens to your land. So it's a lot that goes in real estate, y'all. I know y'all see the Stellar Sunset HGTV. It's so cute. They just doing such great deals. But yeah, we just get a bunch of fluff and then we get them arguing on TV. I just wish they would be more. I wish they would really fill it out for y'all, but they don't. Because we don't need the made up drama in real estate. There's enough drama to be had. Trust me. The listings come. She said, anyway, bring your contractor. So again, she priced the home according to that because she knew the house was being sold as is. She says, I consulted the sellers to understand that we would need to be picky and wait for the right buyer to come along. Due to the repairs the house required, we ideally needed a cash buyer or even an investor who understood the amount of work it would take to get the house in a livable condition. So thanks, Lang. Thanks, Lang, for watching. Thanks, Monique. Thanks, Dad. They're all watching. If you have any questions, put them along. So she said, take note of the market conditions. Said they listed the home in January 2023 for $227,500. And from that point on, things happened fast. She said, due to a lack of inventory and high prices in our market, we knew we would likely have a lot of interest. She said she had 64 showings over the first week and 8 offers were submitted ranging from $180,000 to $230,000. The higher offers were primarily VA loans, which wouldn't work because of the repairs that would be required. So sometimes, again, it goes into your loan. I'm not a lender, but we'll talk a little bit about, because I have an article that kind of dives into what sometimes the loans could kind of stop you from doing when you're trying to buy a house sold as is, as far as what type of structural, I guess you could say, fairness or situation the house should be in. So she said no to they said no to the VA loan. Others were conventional loan buyers who were at the top of their budget and likely didn't appreciate how much it would cost to necessarily do the repairs and renovations. She said Swan instead focused on the soul. They had one cash offer. They said we focused on negotiating our one cash deal, which was initially an offer of $200,000. I explained to the seller that even though we had stated it was an as-is sell, the buyer would likely ask for something more after inspection, and that's typically what happens. Once we have an inspection on the house, as with a good agent and a good person, and we'll say, hey, well, let's come in and ask for maybe, like I said, additional closing costs for said repairs, or in this situation, they're a cash buyer, so they can ask for some type of money at closing per se. The brothers countered, and the prospective buyer agreed to 95% of the list, thereby leaving some room for repair negotiations. Let's get all the way down here. It says, I knew the home needed a new roof and that there was a leak in the basement, and that would show up in the inspection, which it did. She said, with that information confirmed, we renegotiated the deal for $207,500, a very fair closing price for both sides. And so they end up selling the house for $207,500. So that was a quick story. I just thought I would bring it in here. I know I kind of breezed through this article, but I didn't want to have you guys sitting here the whole time with me reading this whole article. But so that is a scenario in which you can have a house sold as is, and the realtors will work with the clients to say, okay, this is what we should do. This is the tech that we should do, because we know that selling the house as is sometimes is a little harder and tricky, and you don't want to, mess yourself up in the deal. So let's kind of go real quick so I can tell you guys what their definition of as mean, what this sold as is mean real quick. And then again, if you have any questions, put it below in the comments. If you are joining us on a replay, put your questions below in the comments. Don't forget to share this live. It could definitely help other people looking to possibly buy in the future or sell a house in the future. It says, what does sold as is mean? It says sellers list their homes for sale as is when they don't want to do any repairs, like we said before closing. It means there are no guarantees from the seller that everything's in working condition, and they're not required to provide a seller's disclosure. Again, every state is different. So I would take this part right here for a grain of salt, this seller's disclosure, because every state is different. Because if they lived in a house, even if they're selling it as is, you still have to provide a seller's property disclosure. Even if you're selling a house as is, particularly in the state of Georgia, we want you to provide that, even if you're selling it as is. So you would have to see what are your state laws per se around that. If you buy an as-is house home and later find major problems, you're responsible for the repairs. So it says, as-is, sellers still need to meet federal and state minimum disclosure standards. Again, still might have to meet disclosures, which include telling you about conditions like lead paint. So lead paint is a federal law. So if the house was built prior to 1978, they have to disclose if there was any lead paint in the house. It says as is doesn't always mean broken beyond repair. So that's another thing, a myth that I want people to get out of their head. As is, like I stated before, it does not mean if you're buying a house as is that everything in the house is broken down. It might mean there are many reasons why a seller might list a home as is, even with no minor or no issues. The seller might be in debt and not have the money to pay for home renovations. So sometimes something can be as is because it's dated. It could be a house built in 1980s and they didn't change the pink tile in the bathroom. And nowadays we're in the 2000s and everybody has this modern type of updated bathroom, and they can't afford to get any of the repairs done. So it's as is. It says the seller might not have time to wait for contractors to finish a major job. There are also plenty of non-repair related reasons why sellers might list as is. So we got to take all that into account too, right? Monique said, if your loan amount is $300K and I guess you're saying in the house and the house for $200K. I guess you meant saying you buy the house. And you buy the house for $200K, can you use the rest of the loan for fixing it? No, you cannot. You have to get a certain loan to do that. So it's called, if you're doing FHA, it has to be a 203K FHA loan, and you have to actually put that contractor in place, and the lender has to approve said contractor in order for you to do that. So if you buy a house for $200K and your FHA, VA, USDA, things like that, with those loans per se, you have to all that money, even conventional, really, I think conventional too. You have to give all that money, that loan amount that you're getting from them. It just goes back. You don't. Basically it disappears because you didn't utilize it. Just goes. You're only utilizing $200,000 of that loan, so you don't get any additional money unless you have a particular loan in place that allows you to utilize up to that amount. So if you're doing FHA, you'll do that FHA 203K, and that'll allow you to kind of move up that additional amount, but it has to be approved by the lender. So, but you cannot just use the rest of the loan. So, the money, sorry. A house sold as is will likely be sold cheaper. Would that affect the price of houses in the neighborhood? So over time, it could possibly affect the houses in the neighborhood, because when an appraiser comes out, an appraiser is not looking at that house across the street sold as is because the bathroom is not renovated. That house across the street sold as is because the person passed away, like in their situation, passed away in the house. So the appraiser is just looking at how much the house was sold for, and if those specs compare to what your house is. So over time, it could create a depreciation as far as making houses a little less in your area. If all of a sudden everything is just sold cheaper, and even if it's sold as is, yes, because they're not looking at all those different things. It's like again, you have some appraisers that say they are, but from what I'm seeing, they're not. Again, talk to an appraiser, ask them more information. That is their job. But from what I'm looking at, I haven't seen it myself. I've seen it going on trend where everything's around. If something's $200,000, but everything's selling for 190, I'm seeing that they're appraising stuff in that area. So yeah. All right, let's get back to this real quick. You just do buying a home as is. It says buying a home as is might be more tempting when the market is competitive. Let's get down here. It says what to consider with an as is home sale. It says before you decide to close on as is home, consider the following parts. Minimum property requirements. So it says though as is homes aren't always in disrepair, most homes that are unlivable sell as is. This means a bargain for contractors who can correct these problems. But while you might be up for the challenge of repairing a caved-in roof or a broken heating system, your lender might not be. So again, this goes back to what type of loans you utilize to buy a sold as is house. So you want to talk to your lender and just give them some information. Because if the house is being sold as is, but the carpet needs to be pulled up, you need to renovate the bathroom tile and different things like that, the house will still pass an FHA loan or certain loans because that's not structural situations. A structural situation is like the foundation is a crack through it, so the house is leaning. The roof has a bunch of leakage coming through it, or the house is things happening to the house to cause a structural issue. So it says most loan types require that property meets certain livable standards known as minimum property requirements, MPRs. A licensed appraiser will perform a home appraisal. So again, that's what I tell people too, right? Because people ask me, they like, oh, I had the home inspection. The home inspection is okay. And I would say, okay, well, if you're FHA or VA, you have an appraisal inspection. The appraisal inspection will then put everything in line as far as if the loan is good enough to be approved through that particular for FHA, which is the Federal Housing Administration, which is through HUD, and then VA through the Veteran Affairs, Department of Veteran Affairs. So those people through that loan, the lender or mortgager that you're using, those things have to be approved through those type of settings per se, in order for it to close the loan. So the appraiser ultimately makes the ultimate decision. It's not your home inspection. It's not what you're negotiating. If you're using certain loans, the appraiser is making that decision of what they found and what they report on that appraisal when you're using certain loans. It says FHA loans are affordable government-backed loans provided by the Federal Housing Administration. To qualify, the home you buy needs to meet minimum property standards for FHA loans. Says the home needs to be safe for you and your family to occupy at the time of purchase, and it needs to be structurally sound. So again, we just talked about this earlier. House has to be structurally sound. It says, in other words, it must not have any physical deficiencies or conditions that compromise the structural integrity. Most homes that need total renovations won't qualify for an FHA. You have your USDA loans with the United States Department of Agriculture, and these are loans that are given to homes that are in rural areas. A lot of areas in America are considered rural, even if they're close to the city. So you guys, if you qualify and if it's something that you want to look into, this is another way to get a home with possibly no down payment. But it's a little harder to do it because you have to meet a lot of requirements. But it says with USDA, here are a few minimum property requirements for USDA: structurally sound foundation, a roof that prevents moisture from entering the home, an up-to-date electrical system, well-functioning heating and cooling systems, suitable plumbing and water pressure. You have your what happened? Sorry. You have your VA loans, and these are loans are benefit of service for veterans and active duty military members, courtesy of Department of Veteran Affairs. So you have your VA loans. These are VA, because VA loans are government backed. There are MPRs as well. And you typically have, some of them are right here: clean drinking water, a working water heater and storage system, a heating system capable of warming the home to 50 degrees. All mechanical systems must be working in order. The roof must be in good condition. The home must be free of pests. So you have a lot of different things that go in tandem, even with FHA down here in Georgia. Most people don't know this, but Georgia is considered the second largest state when it comes to termite infestation, as far as termites eating the bottom of your home to basically eating the wood. So it is required with an FHA and a VA loan down here, and the USDA loan down here as well. I believe USDA. I could be wrong, but I think it is, because they're all government backed. But it is required that you have a termite clearance letter. So again, have these conversations with a lender. Next Sunday, we'll actually have a lender on the live. This is actually a lender that I'm working with currently with a buyer client that I have. I talked to him today, and he said that he'll come on next Sunday. I just didn't want to throw him on here tonight because he said he needs some time to prepare. But we'll have him next Sunday. So if you have any questions around loans, FHA, VA, USDA, conventional, this is going to be a moment to ask as far as loan types. He is a lender in the Georgia area. However, if it's very specific, flat questions, he can kind of answer them all. But if it's something very specific to your state and your city, he might tell you to refer to someone in your state or your city. But anyway, let's get back to it. A conventional mortgage is one that's not guaranteed or insured by the federal government. Most conventional loans are conforming loans, which means they meet the criteria set by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Let's go down here. Freddie Mae and Freddie Mac allow properties to be purchased as is when there are only minor deficiencies or deferred maintenance. The home must be safe and sound, and structural issues must be minor and due to normal wear and tear. So it said here are examples of kinds of defects that are generally acceptable if you're getting a conventional loan. So these are things that are, if you have a conventional loan, that they'll generally accept. Again, this is just something they say general. Worn floor finishes or carpet, minor plumbing leaks, window screen holes, minor window cracks, damage to interior walls, damage or missing window screens or cabinetry doors, missing handrails, damage or missing trim, missing light fixtures, electrical switches or faceplates, deteriorated sidewalks. So these are some of the things that an appraiser looks for. So this is saying with a conventional, these might be sufficient enough when you're having it sold as is. It says home inspections are a must for as is sales. If you want to buy an as is home, you definitely want to get a home inspection. A home inspector will let you know all the major issues. This gives you a good idea of what you'll need to fix and how much it'll cost if you decide to buy the home. And again, this is just talking about more about it, about the cost of repair. So we're going to get off of that. And before we get off here, we're going to go into new construction too, because I think some people think I'm gonna buy new construction and I don't need to do anything. So this right here, I just pulled this up to let people know, as far as Georgia, if you're in Georgia, it says if you are about to start or buy a house in Georgia and you're wondering what sort of information the seller is required to disclose about the property, it says each state has its own set of disclosure laws. Georgia's are a little less defined than most. This state is, I tell people, Georgia, Florida, Texas, certain states, I call them the run amok state. When I tell you they run amok with real estate in these states, and people do think I'll be playing around, when I be sitting here trying to inform them about a lot of stuff, I'm like, y'all better get a good agent that's going to dig into it, because I'm telling y'all, these are run amok states. It says right here, in many states, real estate disclosure is made using what's known as a property disclosure statement, transfer disclosure, or a real estate disclosure form. It says when, what it says, I want to say where it says when transferring real estate and some common seller disclosure, certain things. But it said here somewhere where Georgia, it's not required, but I always require that we get it. It says, is a seller disclosure form required in Georgia? Georgia sellers are not required to fill out a formal disclosure statement. They do, however, have to inform the buyer, at least verbally, of any known problems with the condition of the home that aren't clearly evident. So I said, in the day, we want a disclosure. We want it on paper. We want to understand what's the matter with the house. I don't care if they can just tell us verbally. You're buying a house sold as is, even if it's not being sold as is, even if you're buying a house in general, we want a disclosure. If you lived in a house, you know what's the matter with the house, right? Like, so let's not play around with the crap. I'm like, let's not play around with the crap, y'all. You know what's the matter with your house. You lived in your house. I was like, stop playing with us. Stop playing with us out here. This ain't no game. All right, so now let's talk about a little bit about new construction and how I still tell you guys that you should get Even though these homes, again, to me, I'm saying every home is sold as is, right? You don't know what the house is. You don't, even if it's a new home, it's still sold as is, right? It might not state in the stuff that is sold as is, but to me, every home is sold as is. I don't know what that home is. I'm not a, as a buyer buying a house, you didn't build the house. You don't know what condition the house is. So let's talk a little bit about new construction, and then let's she said LOL crap LOL. yeah man. Let's hear this real quick.
A new home to start a new chapter of her life.
But tonight, problem after problem. She says she's not getting any help from the builders. Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Tom Mustin.
And I'm Jacqueline Allen. This woman is now reaching out to Contact 7, and we sent Denver 7's Jason Grenauer to check it out.
I thought I found a great property.
A brand new row home in Denver was just what Rhonda Kelly was looking for.
2 bedrooms, high ceilings, lots of light.
What she actually bought?
This is a nightmare house.
New construction that started falling apart within a few months.
And the problem continues.
Windows that bowed out. Walls that leaked with rain or snow.
We could smell the gas.
An oven tagged as
an explosion hazard.
Then this.
My shower, which is located roughly right up here on the 3rd floor, drains out that light fixture here over the 1st floor.
Water, the last place it should be.
This was a significant volume of water. It traveled a long distance, and I don't know how long that's been happening.
And finally, the structure of the building itself, discovered by a city engineering review.
The beam over the garage door isn't load rated high enough to withstand a wind shear event or a high wind event. This is in place until it does meet code.
Rhonda is now stuck with what she calls a lemon house.
I can't use my garage. I can't use my shower. I can't use one of the light fixtures. I can't use my oven.
The builder, Sustainable Design Build, didn't return our emails asking for comment.
I get excuses. I just don't get satisfaction.
Emails from the company show that work on fixing the structural issues was supposed to start in July. The beam was installed in September.
It's 3 months later. The work still hasn't been done. As far as I know, it hasn't been scheduled.
A dream house turned nightmare. She just wants fixed.
The number of issues that I've had is unbelievable. And it makes me fearful for what I haven't noticed yet, for what's going to develop in the future.
So that is a young lady who bought a new construction house in Denver. So again, when it comes to sold as is, you might see these. You might see. He said, "What is the recourse?" The recourse at this moment is either probably I don't know personally, but I'm thinking maybe you could try to maybe sue the company. I don't know. That's the only thing is that. I don't know from that video too if she actually hired a home inspector to kind of look at it, because what most people think is when they get a new construction and you kind of walk through the house and you do your blue tape as far as in the house, so they'll go around with you when you like a walkthrough as far as the new construction. They'll let you see any type of things that you may blatantly see with your own eyes that might be a matter with the home, and then you'll put like blue tape. They call it like a blue tape inspection. You put the blue tape down, and then they're supposed to fix those said things prior to you moving into the house. But what I've been hearing is that a lot of people who've got new constructions, they're saying that these things are not being fixed. And I think the reason why a lot of them probably aren't being fixed nowadays really is just because, one, there's a limited amount of homes per se. That's what they're saying. There's not enough homes. There are not enough laborers working on said homes. So homes are kind of being built faster, and what they're being built faster, they're just putting people in the homes. And so when you go and you do these blue tape inspections, they don't have time really to correct it, because they're like, okay, we have to go into making these other 5 houses that we got to get up that we're trying to meet deadlines for. And if we got to go back and start doing some of these repairs, we don't got time for it. So that's what I think. That's what I think is personally happened. I could be wrong, but I think that's the reason why some of these issues are not being dealt with. And what people think too with new construction is that they'll be like, oh, well, you have a 1-year warranty. You have a warranty. You can get that done over the time. The builder is guaranteeing you a 1-year, 5-year, whatever, such and such warranty. We'll do that through time. Baby, once these builders sell all these homes in that subdivision, they're not fixing your stuff. I'm going to tell you that right now. They're not fixing your stuff. They're going to run and they're going to say, okay, bye-bye. I'm not fixing that. So let's look at one more video. with new construction. So again, I guess the moral of the story is that when it comes to buying a house, the way you look at it is the way I look at it. Every house is being sold as is. From new construction to a house that literally has labeled on it sold as is. But you still want to make sure you do your due diligence with every single house you buy. So this is another new construction. And then
Vegas couple says for months
live after
they've been living at a construction site.
in the
They've
comments.
even found beer cans and trash built into the home.
And 13 investigative reporter Joe Bartels now shows you what happened and what to do if you ever find yourself facing construction chaos.
At nearly $500,000, you'd expect a newly built home to be nearly perfect, but the dream of home ownership has turned out to be a real nightmare for one couple. From the outside, nothing looks out of the ordinary, but step inside the home belonging to Julie and Ryan Butler, and it's clear it's still a work in progress.
I've cried. I fight back tears every day.
Julie Butler says prior to closing, she did a walkthrough and pointed out things that needed fixing, but claims she never got a chance at a final walkthrough to verify.
So that's what I'm talking about. How when you do new construction, they'll say, okay, you have a walkthrough. You always want to ask that your agent be there with you when you're doing a walkthrough. Some agents, what they'll do, because what they do down here in Georgia, I don't know if they do in other states, but the new construction people, wonderful people. We're all people, okay? So they're not doing it to be wrong per se, but they might say, hey, you don't need to worry about your agent being there. We can go with you into the house. We have somebody there and they'll put the blue tape down for you. You can walk through the house. I always advise people, even when buying new construction, you guys want to work with an agent that is there to work for you and help you through the process of buying your home. The sales agent that's beautiful, that's on site, the new construction, that's friendly, that's so nice, they're helping you through paperwork per se. They work for the builder. The builder is their client. You are not their client. You are a customer. So when you come in, they're helping you fill out the paperwork because they're trying to make sure they get all the stuff so they can get the sale through and help the builder with the transaction. But you want to have somebody there to be on your side to fight with you through the process. So you want to get your own agent. And when you go through the process of looking at the new construction and you do your blue tape walkthrough, you want to make sure your agent is there and you want to have as many eyes that are on your side looking at any issues that could possibly arise. Again, I always tell people, I can't bust walls open as an agent to people's houses. I can't, unloose plumbing and do all that stuff because we can't wreck a house per se. But what we can physically see is what we're going to focus our eyes on, right? What you should do as a buyer buying new construction, this is always kind of the best place to be in, really. If you're buying a new construction, you should try to get an inspector on site from the grading of the house, the foundation putting in, the drywall installed, the framing, all that stuff being done to the house so they can actually see step by step the electrical work, the plumbing work, everything kind of being put into the house so they can actually see step by step. It's going to cost you more money. And yes, every builder is not going to agree with said inspector being on site because you have some builders that say, okay, you can have a home inspector, but we have to approve them. They have to be X, Y, and Z through us, blah, 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 right? But you want to make sure you do this stuff. So again, let's get back into it.
Everything was right.
After we moved in, I noticed, okay, they didn't do this. They didn't do this. They didn't do, fix the lines on the walls and things like that.
The Butlers noticed there was a laundry list of issues with the house, so much so they hired a home inspector to get an expert opinion.
I'm not aware of this, so I had to seek someone professionally to see what was actually wrong with his home.
This 66-page report, commissioned 4 months after the home was considered finished, details the potential problems. There was poor workmanship in the master bathroom. It notes adding the tub is shifted toward the wall and the faucet is amiss, describing it as too short and spilling water onto the sides instead of the bottom. It recommends a total removal and reinstall. The HVAC unit condensing pipe wasn't routed to the outside for drainage, posing a potential leakage issue. There were cracks in the granite of the kitchen backsplash. Sections of the countertop weren't level. Adding the workmanship appeared to be substandard. That went for the cabinets throughout the house, it notes. Century Communities, the home builder, agreed to do the repairs, but then more issues.
After removing the granite countertop for our island, what I've noticed is, once again, Bud Light can, caulking, paper, you name it.
The Butlers say it appears construction workers built part of their home around trash.
They removed the granite, and underneath it were 2 beer cans, 2 empty water bottles.
So yeah, so needless to say, we'll kind of end the live here. If you guys have any additional questions, please put it below before we kind of jump off of here. I thank you guys for joining me tonight. I know I could be kind of wordy and lengthy, but I just created this whole platform, this YouTube, to educate people around home ownership, not to scare you from being a homeowner or home buyer, but just to tell you to do as much due diligence as possible that you can do prior to buying a home, so you can be in a better situation or a better place when buying said home. But again, as you guys can see, no matter if it's new construction or whether it's a house being resold, there always might be some type of issue, but you always want to go into, I look at it as going to everything as being sold as is, even if the wording sold as is not on the public remarks. Because I don't know what condition the house is in, even if it's new construction, because I didn't build the house, right? But needless to say, again, thank you guys for joining. If you are just getting on now, please go back and watch the live from the beginning. If you have any questions or comments that you want to say, put them below in the comment section. If you have any topics that you're interested in us talking about, please put it below in the comment section as well. And if you were on tonight, please don't forget to share the video with anybody else that you know that might want to hear this information or need to know this information. Again, my name is Devon Clark. I am a local realtor in the area. You can connect with me on Instagram at IamDevonC. You can also email me at dclark@gmail.com if you have any questions in regards to real estate questions, real estate, looking for a realtor in the Metro Atlanta area or any realtors prior to where you're at. I can also do my best to connect you as well in your state, in your city, with a realtor. Again, thank you for joining me tonight. Take care. And I look forward to talking to you guys next Sunday when we have our lender on here to answer your questions. All right. Bye-bye.